All right, welcome back, and we're going to move into fundamental number 3, which is airflow or exhalation. So last time we talked about breathing in, right? Taking those deep breaths and the inhalation of air. This time we're going to be talking about exhalation of air.
Yeah, so this is the second piece of it. And this is so often where people kind of get mixed up because they think singing is all about breathing well. But I've noticed that a lot of vocal coaches don't talk about then the exhalation of the air. They focus, we kind of talked about this last time in the last fundamental, they focus a ton on making sure you can breathe well, which is important. But then like I said, I'll have students come in who've been training with another coach for several years, and they come in and they are excellent at breathing deep and having a good singer's breath, but then they have no control of the air as it comes out. And for some reason, in a lot of vocal techniques and pedagogies, it's something that's missed. There's a lot of really great techniques that specifically focus on the flow of the air, which is phenomenal. So it's just something that we need to make sure we don't neglect and we don't forget.
Really, because so in my mind, this is how it works, right? Like when you breathe in, you've taken in all this air, but how good are you going to be at controlling it? How efficient are you going to be?
Exactly. Because if you've taken the singer's breath, you've gotten this big, huge breath in, and then all of a sudden you just let it all out at the same time, or you let it out too slowly. It's managing the air is so extremely important when the vocal cords actually start to phonate or create sound, because the breath in, there's no phonation with the air yet, right? Especially if you've got that open silent breath instead of the right the high breath that we talked about. So there's no phonation or sound when you're breathing in. So really, airflow is that first element of creating sound that you can really control the sound with.
And what does that even mean, really?
So we're talking about air pressure, right?
Sure.
And I actually don't like singers to think of it as air pressure, because then psychologically we'll think pressure, right? So just understand, when I speak about air pressure, I'm specifically speaking to physics and the anatomy of what's actually happening in the vocal cords with the air. When you take a nice deep breath in, so you've got these two vocal cords in your throat, right? We already talked about if you swallow, you can feel it move. So they sit like this, your vocal cords sit like this in your larynx, in your voice box. And there's these two muscles in the back. They're kind of connected in the front. There are these two muscles in the back that bring the vocal cords together. The thing that actually makes them phonate is the air pressure underneath and the air pressure above, okay? So what happens is, as you've taken this deep breath in, the vocal cords closed, and the air particles below the vocal cords are charged. There's just more pressure below the vocal cords than there is above the vocal cords. That air pressure causes the vocal cords to start to oscillate from the bottom to the top. The air pressure on the bottom pulls the vocal cords together, so they do this. And the air passes through the vocal cords, and that's what creates the sound. This effect of the air pressure below the vocal cords is called the Bernoulli effect. So you can imagine the way you control the air moving through the vocal cords is extremely important, because if you just blast air into the vocal cords, we're going to have tension issues and things are going to be all knocked out of balance. Or if you don't let enough air through the vocal cords, we're not going to have enough pressure to actually pull the vocal cords fully closed, which is called vocal cord adduction. Having said all of that, just understand that nice deep breath in, the vocal cords close, and then we have the air coming through. And if we don't manage that airflow and learn how to control the airflow very, very consistently and get the right amount of airflow moving through the vocal cords, it causes all kinds of problems. And the interesting thing is, most of the problems that we fix in singing, especially with people singing high, powerful notes, has to do with the airflow.
Okay. So it sounds to me that if you're not getting enough air through, you're not going to have enough volume. And it sounds like your chords won't come together, so you actually lose control.
Right. Or and then on the flip side of that, if you blast air through it,
then you also lose control.
You also lose control, because ultimately what we're looking for is a balance between the air coming through the vocal cords and then the actual muscles of the vocal cords, because those muscles have to hold those cords closed to create the sound. So let's talk about an analogy that we can all understand. Everyone's blown up a balloon before, right? You blow it up, right? And it's nice and open. So it's funny. It's like when we breathe in, everything is nice and open.
Yeah.
Okay, so pretend the balloon is your lungs. So you fill up your lungs. And then you can do two things with that balloon from there. You can let it go, and it'll just go and fly away, right? That's kind of like exhaling without the vocal cords being closed. They go, right? Balloon.
Like the sound.
Do you like
effect.
the sound effect? I know. I've done this a few times.
That's a good one.
And then there's another thing you can do with the balloon. You blow it up, and it's just like your lungs have filled up with air, and then you pinch the balloon, and it does what?
Makes that high pitch squeaky sound.
Right?
Yeah.
That sound. And it's like super fun as a kid, and as an adult you're just like, please stop. It's awful. And it's fun though. So it actually creates sound. So it's the same. The Bernoulli effect still happens with that. Okay? So you pinch the two sides of the balloon together. It's just like the vocal cords coming together. There's more charged air underneath them in the balloon than on the other side of it. And they flap together. They oscillate. And the air passes through. And because those two sides are touching, it creates sound. That's exactly how your vocal cords work. Isn't that crazy? So it's really interesting to note that I could take that balloon, and if someone else is holding it, and you could squeeze the balloon and push more air out faster,
Right.
it would create a higher pitch because, or if you like change the size of the balloon, right?
Right.
But it also makes it louder. Okay. That being said, the sides still have to be touching for it to actually get louder. If I were to let it go and squeeze it, there wouldn't be an increase of sound. There would just be extra air. Right. So there's two pieces to that. There's that first element I talked about. The first element that you can actually control in your singing is your airflow out. Okay. And when I say that, I mean in creating the sound, because obviously, breathing is important.
Right.
The first element of controlling the sound is the airflow out. The second is actually how much your vocal cords resist the air. And that's muscle.
So in your balloon analogy, it's one aspect is pulling, like
that's the tensioning
it, right?
Yeah, so that's like the actual vocal cord tension, or like the muscles and the ligaments.
And the other is how much you push out. That's like squeezing the balloon. How much you're going to squeeze on the balloon.
Yeah, and isn't that interesting? Like we can actually control these two things very well, and that actually managing that and finding optimal airflow and balance with muscle is the game. Like that's 80% of the game, you guys. It's just like, and that's my own number. That's not proven. That's just me. Is knowing that the airflow and the muscle are balanced. And so that's why we're talking about exhalation right now, because how do you control that airflow? And we are going to give you an exercise that you can start working on to feel what that compression of the air feels like, what it feels like to have that charged air underneath the vocal cords, and then how do you manage that and maintain it so it stays nice and balanced and even. Some other terminology for this, there's actually full vocal pedagogies based off of airflow control and exhalation, and some of them are called exhalation-oriented singing, which I totally stand by. I think it's amazing, or some people call it flow phonation. It's extremely important, and that's why if you have been studying voice and people aren't talking about airflow, don't worry. That's something that I see a huge discrepancy in all the time. We talk about it in the singing world, but pedagogies that are based in airflow and really are concerned with that balance, super awesome most of the time.
All right, well,
let's move on to a tip. Let me show you guys how to get that airflow, or to start to feel the control of the airflow and get it nice and consistent. Okay, so now that we've talked about breathing and airflow, let's put breathing and airflow together, because in order to get a really nice airflow moving and that exhalation of air, we have to first get our nice deep breath. So it's a good thing we know how to breathe deep now. So we're going to take a nice deep breath, and I'm going to walk you through a series of a few different things we can do to start to really be aware of our air. So if we have our hands on our rib cage, or you can put your hands on your head, get that nice deep breath in through your nose. And then what I want you to do once you have that deep breath through your nose is I want you to take a little sip of air. And what you're going to do is you're going to feel, once you take that sip of air, you're going to feel that diaphragm go boop. And you're going to feel a little bit of a pulse in your abs. And then we're really full. And that feels really good. And then also that sip of air also opens up everything so that we can get ready to now exhale. So let out your air. Hands on the head or on the bottom of your rib cage. Nice deep breath in through your nose. Sip of air. All right, now we're ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an S sound. So we're just going to go S. And we're going to do it as long as we can. Now here's the thing. This isn't a let's see who can do it the longest and barely make a sound. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a nice spin of air behind your teeth. And when I say that, you're going to feel a little bit of air pressure behind your teeth when they're closed and you're creating this S sound. It feels really good when you find it. So kind of look for that. And you're going to feel your air kind of go in and out at first. We're going to get that nice deep breath in again, expand that rib cage. Sip of air. And And when you run out, you run out. I don't want to hear that the petering off the at the end of it. Okay? So we're just going to go strong the whole time and it's nice and even. Now you notice I'm doing this thing with my hand. That's the next piece. So the interesting thing is that your voice and your air are going to follow your body language. It's a really beautiful thing. So if you actually take your hand, if you notice that your air is kind of going in and out and doing a thing, or it's and it's hard to maintain a nice even airflow. If you take your hand, I like to kind of do this with my fingers like I'm pulling the air. And it's nice and even all the way through the breath. You'll notice that you'll be able to control your air better. Another thing you could do, some people will take their hand and move it across for the whole phrase of the breath. So you can do it that way too. Whatever works for you. This is my favorite. So we're going to do it one more time. Hands on the rib cage or on the head. And we're going to take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Sip of air. And our S. And we're going to get it as consistent as possible. And if you can keep going, keep going. But you can feel that little bit of pressure behind your teeth. That is beautiful. So the idea is that when we start creating sound, when we start phonating and the vocal cords are closed and that air is underneath the vocal cords and it's passing through like the balloon, we want that air pressure to be nice and even, just like your S. So this is a great way to start practicing even air pressure, just to see if you can get, or even airflow, just to see if you can get that to even out with just that S sound. That's really, really beautiful thing underneath everything. That's just the foundation of all of that creation of sound. So we're getting that nice deep breath, and then we're getting that nice even S flow. So then we can take it to the next level. This is a really great way to see what's happening with the air. So you can get yourself a little water bottle. Make sure you recycle. And this is a biodegradable straw. Super proud of that. And you stick your straw in the water. So we're going to blow bubbles. The thing that's so cool about this is it makes it really, really easy to see what's happening with the air, because if the bubbles are uneven, that means that your airflow is uneven as well. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take a note of your speaking voice. So just say, that's what we're doing. It's just talking, okay? But we're going to take that nice deep breath in again, the yoga breath through the nose, fill up the lungs, take the sip of air, and then we're just going to pick a note. So it's a and you're going to go as long as you can. Remember, we don't want it to like slowly fade out. We want it to just go until you can't, okay? But you can see that airflow, you can see the airflow instantly. You get that feedback from the water, which is so, so cool. And you can do this. This is also another little trick. It's kind of skipping ahead. You can do that on your song. So if you're trying to just get your airflow even through a song, take the straw, put it in water, and the deeper you put it in the water, the more air you're going to have to blow, and you're going to get a little bit more pressure. So just find a good depth where you can see the feedback from the water, you can see that the airflow is nice and even, and then let it go away. So if you're going to do like the United States national anthem, and we're just trying to get that nice and even all the way through. That's also, you guys, just another little tip. That's an incredible warm-up for your voice too. If your voice isn't feeling good and you sing the national anthem through straw and water and you even that airflow out, it's going to make your voice feel so much better. That's also kind of skipping ahead to our vocal health. But this is one of my favorite things to do with all singers, and it gives you that instant feedback with your airflow. It also gives you a way to start working your airflow on your song. So there's your tip for your airflow, and we've now tied your breathing and your airflow together really nicely. So let's move on to our next fundamental.
We hope you guys are enjoying the Fundamentals of Singing video series here on YouTube. If you guys want more free resources on how we help our artists here at InvictiVox, please check out the InvictiVox Radio podcast on YouTube or any major podcast platform.